Hello, welcome to AI in Action. My name is Maury, and I'm actually here with my husband Jim. We are just not at home and we are not on our couch, which is a lot of the time where we do our podcast from. We are actually in Northern California, Fort Bragg, California to be exact. We are going to be in Mendocino, California tomorrow, giving professional development to K 12 educators there in Mendocino. Actually, it's kind of funny what happened, right, Jim?
Yes, we took a vacation and you decided that we needed to do work while we're on vacation.
No, I decided that while on vacation, I could write off part of it on my taxes as long as I made it a business trip as well.
Shh, the IRS
So,
might be listening.
well, it was a business trip as well. And we went and met with a very nice superintendent here in Mendocino. And he invited us to come back to do some professional development. So here we are. We actually brought Rachel with us, our daughter, because she had never been to Northern California before. And she really likes helping with the AI training and getting in front of people and teaching them about what artificial intelligence can do to make their life easier. So Rachel is along for the trip, and I am really looking forward to it. Of course, we did spend some time this evening putting on the little final finishing touches and creating some really cool videos and stuff like that using artificial intelligence. So that was
Yes,
fun.
tweaking and retweaking and tweaking again. That's kind of your thing.
That is my thing. You tend to get a little irritated with me about that, but oh well, I tend to be a little bit of a perfectionist.
A little bit
So,
of a perfectionist.
mhm. So let's get into what we're going to talk about for this podcast. We are actually going to cover some interesting things that are happening, like headline type things that are happening about artificial intelligence. The first one came out from Anthropic, which, of course, Anthropic is who does Claude. So, what have they been up to?
Well, it's kind of when the headlines this week are going to be a little boring in a sense because Anthropic introduced a thing called prompt caching. Now, again, nothing about the headlines this week sounds very sexy. It doesn't sound like, wow, this is so cool. It's really focused more on them incrementally or improving their product. In this particular case, this prompt caching, the purpose of it is to reduce latency or increase speed, however you want to look at it, and reduce cost. And we'll talk about why that's important in a minute. But basically, it kind of reminded me of what a GPT is if you've ever used one of those, which basically a GPT allows you to build in some information into your, it's like an app in order to be able to utilize it over and over again. With prompt caching, it's similar, but it's not exactly the same. But the basic idea is it keeps some of the context already because they charge you every time you ask it a question. It's called inferencing, and they charge you money or tokens, which amounts to money. And Claude happens to be one of the more expensive ones, but it charges you money each time you do that. Well, in this case, once they cache it, the cost goes down for the next inference, the next question against that cached information by like 80 or 90%. So
Is that
it's significant cost reduction when you're using it.
basically it's because it's already got it in memory, right? It's
Yes.
not going out and finding it again. So like whenever I use ChatGPT and it says, memory updated, it's because it has gone and looked at the things I've already asked of it, and therefore it's not going back out and regenerating or synthesizing information. It's using information it's already given me in the past.
That's part of it. And part of it
Okay.
is the way memory works when you use a large language model. They tend to, unless they've changed it, they tend to use some kind of embeddings to store it, which
Hmm.
means they don't store the information like copying it to a Word document kind of store it. They store it in a mathematical format, which allows it to show the, it's called semantic connections between the meaning of the words, all that stuff. That in itself takes tokens and money, so it's cheaper. Let's
I'm
just go with
sorry.
it's cheaper.
I'm laughing because I always joke about how, the reason we have AI in action is because it's the 30 minutes during the week that, I sit down and I let you talk about artificial intelligence. But, you know, all joking aside, we talk about artificial intelligence a lot. We talk about it every single day. Even today, you started talking to me about it before I had my first cup of coffee.
Yeah,
And
Rachel
I
reminded me of that.
I allowed that to slide because,
Allow
it
that.
Most of the time, it's an interesting conversation. But what you were just talking about, that's the kind of stuff that I'm like, eyeballs are rolling back in the head. I don't understand the thing that you're talking about. And
You know,
that's all
which
we
is
do
funny
this.
because you actually do understand it better than you
Mm,
claim. You claim you
mm,
don't, but we'll go with the simple top points. It reduces cost,
uh-huh,
reduces latency.
uh-huh.
It allows you to do some interesting things with it, like coding assistance. But the main thing is it's a cache is costing is 25% cheaper,
Okay,
or it costs 25% more than the base input token price to get something in it originally. So it gets a lot cheaper
okay.
once you use it. So cheaper,
So we're saving
faster,
money.
and use cases. You're saving money. So we'll move on. So I don't put you to sleep. So I know it's getting late.
Man, I might. It's, hey, we are in California time. In Texas time, it's already after 11.
I
So,
know, way past my
yeah.
bedtime.
So what did OpenAI do? What's their big new release?
Well, another one of those non-sexy sounding, kind of boring ones, but they launched the ability to what they call structured outputs. Basically, the problem you have when you're using AI to just ask it, generate a letter or an email or whatever, that is fairly easy for a large language model to do. But when you're asking it to do something where you need a specific type of output, in this case, it's called JSON. But when you need that type of output, it's not, they may be 90% accurate, but the problem is that means 10% of the time the output's going to be not just, it's not about generating the wrong output, it's about generating the output in the wrong format.
Hmm.
And when you're trying to use that output to query a database, like a SQL database or something, and you not only have the information you're asking for wrong, but the format wrong, well, you mess with databases all the time and you're uploading CSV files. What happens when your CSV file is not in the right format?
Right. Or there's blanks or it just
Exactly. It
all
breaks it
sorts of
breaks
stuff.
something, right?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So this is one of those things. The interesting thing about it is they say in their release that they 100% guarantee that the output structure, when you tell it you want it to, will follow whatever you basically, just like you do with your files you do at work. When you give it a sample of what it's going to look like, well, they're saying it will follow that sample exactly. That is a
Wow.
big deal. That's a big deal because that means I don't have to, if it's accurate, it means I don't have to put in some code to verify. You should anyway, but I don't have to put in code to verify that what I'm getting from the large language model follows the schema correctly, which is what they call it.
Well,
But
one of the things that, I mean, here you said that this was like released quietly. You told me that. Like, you caught it because you keep up with it, but it was
mhm,
kind of a quiet release.
it was.
And the first thing that you told me, or the first thing that you mentioned, was basically like, AI 1.0 is what everyone talks about, and it's all what's getting, shouted from the rooftops, and it's the big headlines, and it's the big splashes and stuff like that. But it's these little quiet releases that are happening in the background that's going to start transitioning the serious AI users to AI 2.0. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Well, yeah, my terminology that I've been using for a long time, AI 1.0 is what I call it, which is where we are now. But I've said on several of our podcasts in the past that AI 2.0 is when it's not sexy, but it is useful. And to me, useful means it's in part of a workflow. Again, using the analogy of what you do at work all the time, which is why I tell you you actually understand this stuff better than you claim. But when you're doing something where you're taking this output and doing something and giving it to something else, which is then doing, so you're kind of passing it along like a chain. When you're doing that, you're doing something useful. And those, what they're called workflows, they're everywhere. They use them for everything.
Hmm.
Databases, everywhere are being queried constantly. I mean, when you ask Google a question, it's querying databases. When you get your banking information from the bank, it's querying all these database queries. All this data that's out there is being queried in a particular format, and they're part of a larger workflow in many cases. When you get on a form on your bank's website and you fill out a form to get some particular piece of information, or you're checking the weather or whatever it is, that information is querying something and getting it back. Well, that all that background stuff, all that thing, we're not going to overnight just go, we're going to throw all that out because we have AI now. So AI has to be able to live in a world that where it can query all that information, get all that information, then give it back to you and synthesize an answer from what it gets. That's what I call AI 2.0 is when
Hmm.
AI starts being able to work with all that back end infrastructure in a meaningful way. That's what to stuff like the two releases that we were just talking about. One of them, which is Anthropic, is about speed and cost. The other one, which is Anthropic, everybody's claiming structured outputs. Gemini, Google released something today saying something about that structured outputs. Everybody's talking about this ability because it may not sound sexy, it may not sound great, but it is incredibly necessary if you want to do something useful. That's AI 2.0. Workflows, back end stuff. That's what 2.0 is all about, and that's when it becomes useful.
Okay. Well, I know that we do want to talk about some education tonight because we are here to train teachers, but there's another thing that's just happened, like on the medical front of artificial intelligence. And it's something that's kind of like really close to home for us because, I just found out the other day that somebody that I knew, I mean, he's going to be okay, but he fought cancer for like 12 months last year and was just very, very quiet about it and didn't tell anybody. But he's like the fifth or sixth person in our area that has been fighting a specific type of cancer. So, I mean, I know it's really personal for you too, right?
Well, it's horrible for both of us. I mean, you and I both know these people. It's a small town. You know these people. It's a particular type of brain cancer. I can't even pronounce it. Glioblastoma. Is that? I don't know if
Yes,
that's
it's
right or
very
not.
close, if not
But
correct.
but anyway, so I grew up with one of the people that we lost a few years ago. I used to sit at a bus stop with her every morning when I was a kid. So I've literally known her for my entire life. And her
Her
daughter,
kids, yeah, her
yeah,
kids were our kids' age. I taught her daughters, yes.
yeah, I mean, you taught both of her daughters. One of her daughters was actually the same age as our youngest son
Hmm.
and was really good at track, just like our youngest son. So they spent a lot of time together. So we spent many,
Well,
many, many nights in the stands or
yes.
afternoons in the stands watching track meets with the two.
Yes. I think the reason that I wanted that this one you wanted to mention this one was because I was at a training, I won't say where, but I was training teachers and there's a little section of our training where we talk about the future of artificial intelligence. And before we really dive into the future, we talk about what it's already currently doing. And one of the comments that I had made was it was like an AI exoskeleton and how it's helping people that are been paraplegic and or have difficulty walking, how it's helping them to walk again. And I commented that I wasn't going to be the person to tell them that because of a fear of AI that they could no longer have the benefit of being able to walk. And someone in the audience said, well, I would tell them because they are very, very fearful of AI. And so that really hit us because, that person commented that they didn't care how much AI could help. They believed that we just shouldn't use it at all, that it should be banned no matter what. So, if she watched somebody that had something like this and that if she did grow up with that person or teach that person's kids and then watch what they went through when they were gone, I don't know if she would have the same attitude.
Yeah, it's easy to say that when you're healthy and everyone you know is healthy, but when you're watching someone like we've had to watch, I mean, they're trying to figure out the cause of it because it is a kind of a cluster of people that have gotten it. And when you're watching people succumb to this is a horrible disease. But anyway, uh, moving on to what exactly the announcement was, the Keck School of Medicine, which I have no idea where the Keck School of Medicine is. I'm assuming it's here in the U.S. Well, it says USC, which is the University of Southern California. So
Hmm.
I'm assuming that it's here in California. Anyway, they have a novel approach using an immunotherapy that they developed in utilizing AI to help them in the development process. So that's the most important thing to us is not that it used AI, even though that's cool. Most important thing is this disease that they went from less than 10% of the patients surviving 5 years, which is what happened to this lady we mentioned. I think she made it like 3 years, to a 75% survival over 5 years.
That's
That's not a
awesome.
that's not a little jump. That's a big jump. Now, it doesn't
Mhm.
eliminate all the current, you know, things that they do in order to do the disease. It just makes it more targeted and more effective. So,
Well, I know that specifically the person that we're talking about would have loved to have been there to see her daughter graduate from college. And if she could have had an additional 5 years um, of quality to where she could see
mhm,
that, she would definitely take it. So that's it's an AI driven discovery that they
okay,
utilized AI to analyze all the data sets and potential targets for the therapy, the immunotherapy.
mhm.
It's very innovative, definitely leads to more research in more areas with more diseases and more cancers. It enhanced the immune response. As you said, it was huge. I mean, the difference in 10% versus 75%, you've got a 65% increase, which is amazing. And just the future implications of it, I think, are awesome. So
Anyway,
definitely
moving
worth
on.
talking about.
I didn't mean to take us into that territory, but when you told me that story, it really kind of hit me wrong about
Yeah,
the person's comment.
I didn't really know how to respond to that. I didn't hear her very well. It was the person that was like with me that heard her, so
Mhm.
I don't know how I would have responded if I understood exactly what she was saying.
Probably better than I would have,
Probably.
because
So
I kind of personalize these things. Let's talk about
let's talk about
education.
education. So we
I wanted to
have,
focus on
about
what was the first one I wanted to focus on, and why did I want to focus on it? Because we're in California, and I
we
knew
are
we
in
were going to be.
California. Uh-huh.
So I thought you'd like this one. So go ahead.
Okay. How to make professional development that teachers actually want and a partnership between California and NVIDIA. So
The
the
first thing, which
the
this
number
isn't
one
California,
thing,
this isn't a California thing. This is just something I thought you would find interesting because I know for a fact you have seen this exact problem before. I mean, you and I see this problem even now, but
all the time.
as a person who used to be an administrator of a campus, or you've seen this kind of thing before, where you're talking about disconnects. So I thought you'd like
Yes.
this article. So anyway,
So
continue.
it's in edweek.com, and basically they took and they surveyed almost 1,500 teachers. I mean, right at 1,500 teachers. And they asked them, about if they found their professional development relevant or irrelevant. And half of them said it was irrelevant, that basically they were not getting the training that would help them in their classroom. But only 16% of the 659 school leaders that were surveyed thought the same thing. So that disconnect of, I'm a principal or I'm an administrator, school board, not school board, or superintendent or something like that, and I'm thinking, oh, my teachers are really going to want to have this professional development on X, and then they go in and get the PD on X, and I think it's awesome, and then over half of the teachers walk out going, why did we just get trained on X? What does that have to do with what we do in our day-to-day lives?
I think
So,
the interesting part of this, because you and I have personal experience with it, we had an administrator in the past that had a specific style that they preferred for professional development.
mhm.
And we had already implemented a style that the teachers really
Really
liked. And
liked.
it was like a conference style that where they could choose what they went to. The teachers could actually sign up to teach it. There was a lot of things about this particular style that were very, very popular. And this new person administrator came in and went, no, no, we're going to do it this other way without even asking. And so I think they would definitely fall into that 16% saying, yeah, it's all great stuff. So anyway, I thought what you'd find interesting is I extracted a few points there out of this article specifically about what should you do better. The first one, of course, being something Rachel would love.
Start with the right information, better surveys. Before you plan the professional development for your school system, ask your teachers, what do they want to know?
That seems like a simple thing, doesn't it?
It
If
really
you're going to
does.
train people and you want to do it well, ask them what they need training on. That seems like
Right.
a simple concept to me, but apparently it's one that's not everybody's getting.
Now, there's a balance. As you say, you've got to strike a balance between what the teacher is saying that they want to know versus what the school's instructional goals are. So if a teacher comes in and says, well, we want to be, trained on this specific tool, but then your school isn't going to be offering that tool because of whatever reason, cost or whatever, then you don't want to waste your time training them on that tool if the school's not going to be offering that tool. So
Well,
you
and
have
we
to find
also
your
were running,
balance.
right, we were running into a problem but before in the defense of the person that had come in and was making the changes. We were running into a lot of state and federal mandates about training that was starting to eat up the time in
Hmm.
our conference style, which, bloodborne pathogens and all that stuff that we had to go through the training on. And we found an alternative way, which is to do those virtually now, so we could go back to the conference style. But I think you'd have to say that some of these mandates were starting to eat up a lot of the choices. It's sort of like when you're majoring in something in college and you've got all the classes you have to take versus the ones you want to take.
Right.
Um, so it kind of was falling into that. But anyway, yes, you're right. You do have to find that balance.
You have to start with the right information. You have to strike the balance, what the teachers want versus what you have to give them or what your instructional goals are for your
Hmm.
school. But then you also need to realize what teachers want to hear and who they want to hear it from.
That's a big one
The
for us
who
when
is a big one. Yes. They actually like it when teachers train teachers. They don't like when somebody comes in who has not been in the classroom recently, who doesn't have access to a classroom, and is sitting there telling you, well, this is how it needs to be or it's going to be. And I can 100% tell you that classroom dynamics have changed over the last 10 years, over the last 5 years, over the last 3 years. It is continuing to change. So, a teacher who has relevant, real experience is very important. And one of the things I'd like to tell administrators, substitute teach. I mean, we had an administrator one time that they were a substitute teacher, not just for one class period, but for a whole day, they would substitute teach once every 6 weeks. And they would just go back into the classroom for the whole day. And so it really does give them a reality check because once you've been out of the classroom, you tend to kind of like lose a little bit of touch with the reality. So let's move on to the next thing because we do only have about 8 minutes left. So,
we got a couple
NVIDIA.
more points I want to hit. Yeah, I can cover this one right quick. Basically, there's a partnership between the state of California and NVIDIA. And I think the goal of this, I mean, if you look at the key points of this particular thing, the goal is to train students and educator and workers in AI. So basically, it's not about training people on how to use it in a classroom. It's about training everyone from top to bottom to allow them to be in the AI world. And
Hmm.
one of the things that I've really liked about it was they're collaborating with community colleges, which I think is really important because not everybody's going to get a 4-year degree, or maybe they already have a 4-year degree and they just want to go back and get some more education concerning, what AI can do in their particular job. So the collaboration thing was important, and I think the fact that it's supposedly about job creation and supporting innovation to help enhance their economy. I think that's I mean, obviously, a lot of the AI stuff started in California. OpenAI is in California, and Google, started it. But anyway, I think the job creation and innovation piece of it, I think this is a good partnership. I think it's a good model for other states to follow. If you want people to be able to do stuff with AI, then you're going to have to teach them how. So, and anyway, that was from the gov.ca.gov. So it's the official California governor website or government website. So anyway,
Okay.
I wanted to have time to squeeze in this last one because I thought you would find this interesting. So I'm going to let you do this one.
It's a survey from thejournal.com. It talks about how top teachers use, or the top teacher uses, I should say, of AI
Yes.
in the classroom. So basically, it's like, okay, if a teacher is using artificial intelligence in their classroom, what are they using it for? And one of the things that we talk about in our training, lesson planning, use AI for lesson planning. And I'm always like, I've been a teacher for a long time. I really don't need it to help me with lesson plans. So the key things that it's saying through this article and this survey that they did is that teachers are using it to personalize learning. So let's say I have a lesson plan and I know that I have my activity in this lesson plan. I can take that activity and I can personalize that activity for as many students as I want.
We
This
talk about it a
this one,
lot in our trainings.
I mean,
It's a
yes,
big
I
one.
mean, I can copy and paste that activity in and I can say, okay, I need this activity to have something to do with soccer because I have 5 boys in my classroom that love to play soccer. I need it to have something to do with, you know, building with Legos because I've got 2 kids in here that really like to build, so you can really personalize the activities for each one of your students or for groups of your students. The other one is administrative efficiency. So, like automating those routine administrative tasks, like helping it with attendance tracking or,
It's
um,
another one we hit all the time. That what I thought you would like about these is this is literally what we talk about. So the
right,
surveys of what teachers are using it for is exactly what it is we've been focused on in our trainings now for a long time.
yes,
So
helping with grading, not necessarily
yes.
grading it for you, but helping it. And it's allowing those teachers to focus more on the development of the relationships with their students and on instructing individual students and on engaging students instead
Mhm.
of sitting there every conference period. Instead of sitting there doing paperwork, now I can spend my conference periods reaching out to parents or putting that little extra something for those kids for feedback. It's also giving real time feedback immediately, like quicker. And that way the kids can make adjustments quicker. You don't have to go back 3 weeks after the fact and realize that, little Susie didn't catch this and then reteach her. You can catch it a lot quicker if she's not catching like a teak or a standard that she's needing to learn. So
And
basically,
what
to
is
break
that
it out.
on the
Hmm?
real-time feedback piece, you and I are working right now specifically on a tool to
Hmm.
help with that particular thing in a private, localized way so they don't have to worry about, teaching teachers how to do that well. I think the feedback thing is a big deal. What we're working on now is going to be really
Yes.
important. Anyway,
We
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go
So
ahead.
to break it out, we're looking at more than half of the survey, or 56% of them, reported that they're leveraging AI to create personalized learning. Others it uses real-time performance tracking and feedback, 52%, helping students with critical thinking skills. 50% are saying they're actually using AI to help teach their kids how to think critically.
That's interesting too.
Um, yes, 47% are proofreading, only 44% are using it for lesson planning, but I am willing to bet that those 44% are probably using it for lesson enhancement more than they're using it for lesson planning. On the administrative side, they're like interpreting and analyzing student data. They're managing some student records. They're managing professional development. So, I mean, artificial intelligence is going to make a huge difference in day to day activities that are happening in K 12 education. I just know it. I can just feel it. I, it's one of those things that you and I are talking about how we started this company almost 2 years ago. The first right out of the box, we were like, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to do this training. We booked like just a few times because it was so brand new. And now not only are we booking, we're double booking and we're booking in other states. So, artificial intelligence is here and it's going to make a huge difference. You just need to make
Well, yeah.
sure. I'm going to put in a little shameless plug. We got 1 minute left. You just need to make sure that the people that are coming in and talking to you about artificial intelligence have actually been in the classrooms, they've been in the trenches, and I'm not talking about 15 years ago. I'm not talking about 10 years ago. They still have relevant, real world, actual experience. So we are out of time. So we are going to say goodbye from California. And next week, I'm hoping to have a guest on that's really, really funny. And he's a sixth grade teacher and he's using AI all the time. And we're going to talk some more about what he is doing in his classroom with artificial
And
intelligence.
and we also are about to have another guest for our AI Traveler series,
Yes, we are. We're going to be
because
talking to
friend of
Andrew.
Rachel's, we're going to be talking to Andrew. Um, we also, we are gone, but thankfully we've got our youngest son at the house, and we've got
Yeah, I don't know if I want that though. I don't know telling what the house is going to look like when we get
and
back.
no
So
telling. So anyway,
anyway, we really appreciate you guys listening in, and we hope that y'all have a marvelous rest of the week.